Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, Masechtas Megillah Daf Zayin. We are going to begin on Zayin of Alpha, about 8 lines from the top. Omer Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Shalch lehem Esther l'Chachamim. So Esther sent an important message to the Chachamim, and she wanted the Kivuni l'Daros, that Megillah Esther should be established, that all future generations should read it. It shouldn't just be something that was once occurred, but something that should be constantly reviewed year after year. So Shalchala Kina'at moy eres aleinu leben humos. You're going to end up causing additional levels of jealousy among the nations. Says Rashi, she'amar humos she'anu semechim lahaskim mepaltan. They're going to say, why are we reading this? We're so happy that all these people fell, all of our enemies fell, so it must be that we rejoice over the mishaps and troubles and misfortunes of our enemies. So maybe it's not a good idea. So shalchahem. So once again, she was not content with that. She continued and said, Kfar ksuva ani al divir hayomim l'machim ani pras. It's already written all over the place. This is not something which is hidden. They all know of the historical events. So us reading it is not going to cause any more jealousy. Fine. Rav Chanina, Rav Yochanan, Rav Chaviva, Master Bekuli Seder Moed. Whenever you have this whole group, Kol Kihai Zuga Chulufa Rabbi Yochanan Mali Rabbi Yonasan. This is in Masechta Sukkah. It's the same lashon. The question is who's part of the Zug. Shalchalhem Estel Chachamim, that she sent the following message: Kisvin Ladiris, that the Megillah should be written for all and said for all generations. So Shalchala, so they sent something back. They said, Halo Kasavti Lacha Shleishim Shalishim or Ribeim. There's only 3 times we could mention a Malik, but not 4. So look at Rashi. First, of a Sefer. The Eil Shemos, of a Mishnah Torah, of a Sefer Shmuel. So it's only 3 times. We have it in Sefer Shemos. Then we have, of course, when we, as part of Shabbat Zachar, in the end of Parshas Ki Teitzei, and then also the whole story in Shmuel about Shaul, who didn't kill Agag right away. So it says Rashi, Zehu Shemer Shlomo B'davar Sheshalta Iyata Rishalo Rabbi. It can only be 3 times, not 4. We can't keep mentioning a Malik. After all, we're not supposed to talk too much about a Malik anyway. So maybe this is the 4th time and it should not be done. Ad shematzol mikra kosav b'tayra kosav zos zikaron basefer kosav zos ma shekosav kan of a Mishnah Torah zikaron ma shekosav b'naviyim b'sefer ma shekosav Megillah. So therefore, we actually have this drasha that a person is able to also have it the 4th time by this extra pasuk. It says basefer, what's written in the Megillah. Ketanoi. So we actually have a machlokas tanoim over here. It says kasov zos. Write this ma shekosav kan, what's written over here. Zikarin, as a remembrance. Ma shekosav b'mishnah Torah, what was written in Sefer Devarim, b'sefer. Ma shekosav b'neviim, it means that what's written in Neviim, but not Divrei Rabbi Yeshua. In other words, Rabbi Yeshua says not the Megillah. Rabbi Elazar Hamodoi Amar Kosav Zois Ma Shekosav Kan of Mishnah Torah Zikaron Ma Shekosav B'Neviim Basefer is Ma Shekosav Megillah. So you have a machlokas whether or not this pasuk is actually a remez to the Megillah Esther. Fine. So Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel Esther ein matama es yodayim. So the whole machlokas over here is not whether or not we could have this sefer Megillah Esther. Rather, Rashi says is this sefer can have the same kedusha. It's going to be matamas yodayim. It makes your hands impure. It says Rashi kashar svarim. Do you remember Mitzvah Shabbos? It says in the beginning of Masechta Shabbos shegozu lehin matamas yodayim with truma. And the reason why is because the Gemara over there says that they used to put all these holy scriptures in the same place where they would store truma. And the problem is that mice would get to it, etc., and ruin it. Fine. So the whole question, whether or not it's matamas yodayim. Question 11. Also TA 25, TB 26, same question. So question 11 is Ma nafkim the pulta the tanai in nitna Esther with kasev olo imatamas yadayim. That's the whole answer. Okay, so lememra for the Gemara is that to say the Summer Shmuel Esther la Baruch HaKadosh Nemra? You want to tell me that Megillah Esther is not Baruch HaKadosh? I'll show you it was. Yomi Shmuel Esther Baruch HaKadosh Nemra likrois. So Nemra likrois, well Nemra lichtoiv. It may have been said to be recited, but not to be written. Meisve, Ramer Oimer, Koheles and Matamas Yodayim. When it comes to Koheles, that's not Matamas Yodayim. It doesn't have the same kedusha as the rest of the Svarim. Umachlokas b'Shir Shir. When it comes to Shir Shir, it's a machlokas. Of Yosi Omer Shir Shir Matamas Yodayim, that it is Matamas Yodayim. Umachlokas b'Koheles. It's actually machlokas whether Koheles is. Of Shimon Omer Koheles Mekuli Beisham Mechmori Beis Hillel. So Koheles is machlokas Beisham Beis Hillel. Of Rus v'Shir Shir Esther Matamas Yodayim. So we see clearly that Esther is Matamas Yodayim. So Hudi Amar Rabbi Yeshua. So he'll hold like the Shita of Rabbi Yeshua, as we said before, that there's no remez of Basefer to teach us about Megillah Esther. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh Omer Koheles and Matamas Yodayim. Why is Koheles Ecclesiastes not Matamas Yodayim? Shechachmaso shel Shlomo. It's really a reference to the wisdom of Shlomo Melech. Or only by this, there's a pasuk also say v'yadaber shloishes alafim mashal 3,000 parables. Ve'omer al toisef al devarav, do not add to this. So my v'omer l'chi teima maimer tuva amar. He said a lot of different things. The iboy yichtav, the iboy lo yichtav. It's that which could be written, that shouldn't be written, says Rashi. V'olam mashikosav mashalois ba'almaninhu. They're just parables. They don't come from Hashem. Tashma al taisif al devarov. Do not add to his words, says Rashi. Midik aser l'hosiv aleihim. Since you can't add to them, shma mina baruch hakodesh nemra. Obviously, it came from Baruch hakodesh. Al taisif al devarov. Tanya Rabbi Lezer Omer Esther Baruch hakodesh nemra. We know that Esther was written Baruch HaKodesh. Nemar v'yomer Haman belibo. How do we know it was in Haman's heart? It must be Baruch HaKodesh. Rabbi Kiva Omer Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemar Shnemar v'ti Esther nasaschein be'eni kol ro'eha. How do we know that everyone found favor upon looking at her? Rameir Omer Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemar Shnemar v'yivada hadavar leMordechai. That it became known to Mordechai this matter. How on earth did he know about these two spies wishing to plot to kill Achashverosh? Rabbi Yosi ben Dormaskis Oimer Esem Baruch HaKodesh Nemra Shnemra. The pasuk says Ubaviza lo shalchesh adam, that the booty was not they did not take. Says Rashi, Heich yadu ma asu harachoikim. How do you know what the people from far away did? Maybe they did take. Omer Shmuel, if I was there, Habamina Milsi Arifa Makulhu. I would say something even greater than you. Shnever Kima Kibu Kimul Amal Mashkibul Amata. Omer Rabba Kul Isul Pircha. I can slug up, if you will, all of them. Labar Min Shmuel Delesli Pircha. There's no answer against Shmuel. Svarhu. Because there was no, when it comes to the sheet of Rabbi Lezer, who said the hint that it must have been Baruch HaKodesh, because otherwise how would he have known when it says Haman said in his heart? So he knew there was no one greater than him. So that's pasha, that's what he was considered to be great. V'hai ki kamapish tuva v'yomer adaite denafshi kaimer. Right? It must be that it was on himself. Right? Says Rashi, mapish v'yomer tuva yaviu lavush malchus. So he said, I'm going to have him wear these royal garments. Adaite denafshi kaimer. He's thinking for himself. Shemamina zois hosabeliba. That's probably what was his heart. Right? You could probably figure it out based on what he said. The Rabbi Kiva, Delak Rebbe Lezer, the Ermem Malab Shekol Echad Echad, Nid Masalo Kum Nasai. It's very interesting. Every person views the people in their generation as the most beautiful because that's who they're used to. That's who they gravitate towards. So therefore, Esther had this unique look that she actually had the appearance of all different nations in one. Avahadar Meir Dilmak Rab Chia Barab the Yermer Big Tavater Shni Tarshim Hayu. They spoke Tarshish, and he was able to understand what he was saying, as we know the famous story that he knew that language. Vahad Rav Yosi, because after Mordechai, he that was what he was. He knew everything. Vahad Rav Yosi ben Durmaskis Dilma Pristaki Shadur. So when it came to how do we know that no one took booty or spoils? So maybe they sent out messengers. Says Rashi, Shluchim Shalchalahem L'Mordechai Esther Shlo Niganu Bebiza Shlo Yiro Melech, that no one took. The Shmuel Vadi Leisli Pircha. Ravina Hanamri Ichi Tabachana Pilpalte Charif. The one better is a nice sharp pepper. Mimoit Sunny curry, then even one or a huge basketful of gourds. So if you have one strong pepper, it can make more of an impact than a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's interesting, this Gemara was almost verbatim the Gemara in Chagiga, which talks a similar type of shakavataria of different proofs, and Shmuel coming up with the best answer. Rav Yosef Mahacha, V'yemei Purim Mo'ele. Lo Yavru Mitach Yehudim, it will never cease from the Jewish people. How do we know what will happen in the future? It must be it's Ruach HaKodesh. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Omer Mahacha, the Zichron L'Yosef Mizarim, that'll never cease to exist. Again, how do we know that's what will end up happening? Matanos Avyonim. So Matanos Avyonim, one of the gifts, one of the mitzvos rather, of Purim is giving gifts to the poor. So Tani Rav Yosef, Mishloach manos isharehu shtei manos ishachad. Very pashut. It says Mishloach manos to isharehu to one person. So therefore, that's the minimum requirement. Matanos plural, levyonim is plural. Therefore, shtei matanos shtei bnei adam. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya Shadalei Rabbi Yoshia Atma de Igla Tilta. As we often hear, the special egla tilta is different from what it means. Rashi says here is the shlish lebet, the third animal from its mother's birth. Vigar v'dechamri, and he gave him this wine. So he gave him this beautiful gift as shalach manos. Shalach, as we continue to Zion Mebez, kiyam tabanu rabbeinu. Mishloach manos yisharehu. You're mekayim this mitzvah. Some people don't read them. Rabbi Shardule Lamari Bar Mar Biyad Abaya, that he sent it in the hands of Abaya Ali de Shliach. Moli Taska de Kashba. He gave him this these dates. As Rashi sak mole tamarim, a sack filled of dates. Umoli Kasa Kimcha Diavushna, and also dried up wheat. Amrle Abaya Hashna Imr Mari Ichak Law Malko Havi Dikua Mitzavore Lo Nachas, says Rashi. Chatzal Shahaya Ragul Hoylech Boidenu Ben Kfar, the basket which a person is accustomed to as a villager, Michael Behemto, and he gives to his animals, Lo Yarid Ata Miroisho, do not have it go down now from your head. Kach Ata Nasis Melech, you're like a king, Varosh Beprumbatia, the Eincha Shaluach Lo El Devarim Hamatsuyim Akoil. You should give things that are common for all. Hadash Shadule Ihu Mole Taska de Zangavila, he gave them some ginger, Moikasa de Pilpalte, and these sharp peppers, Arich, which were long. You're going to say, again, you sent me the sweet things, Ihu Shardali Chorpa, and you're going to send me these sharp things. So it's like you're sending me, one thing and a different thing. Rabbi Kinafni Mimar Havi Savannah, he was full. Kimatil Hasam Karinabi Shitin Soy de Shitin Mini Kadera, and he gave him these sweet foods of the CA, which are Karos Shalmini Michael, these plates of food. The Achel Hu Shisin Palugi, and he ate 60 of them. Ubishua Basraihu. Havi Karulate Sali Kader Uboy Lamechos Tsa Abasra. That you wanted to lick the plate afterwards, even though you were full. So Rabbi Hademi Inchi Kafin Anya V'lo Yada, that a hungry person is poor and doesn't realize that Inami Ravcha de Basima Shchiach. When it comes to sweet things, a person still finds food space in their stomach for it, like desserts. As Rashi Ravach Matzlu Ladavar Hamatlik B'toy Hameoyim. Abaya Baravin Rav Chanina Baravin Machalfi Sudosai Adadi. They used to swap their meals one for each other in order to be able to fulfill the mitzvah. Fine. Now we have a very difficult Gemara. Omer Rabba Mechayev Inish Lebesumi Beporiad Lo Yada Ben Or Hamel Baruch Mordechai. We have to be so intoxicated that you don't know the difference between Mordechai and Haman, which in itself is hard to understand. How's that possible? That, in fact, the whole notion of Purim, the Megillah says, do we make noise when we hear Haman's name? So we do need to know the difference. So it's difficult to understand why that should be the case, and why by drinking. Many terutzim to this question. Rabbi Reb Zera of the Sudas Purim Bahadi Adadi. So some people actually say this is to prove, it's almost like it's a kasha, that it can't be because of the following story. Otherwise, it's hard to understand why we're saying this story. They have these two great rabbis, Rab and Reb Zera. They're having a meal together, and Ibsum. So they got so drunk that Kam Rabba Shachti Reb Zera. Rabba got up and literally slaughtered Reb Zera. And he asked for mercy, and he came back to life. Or does it mean literally he shechted him? Exactly what does that mean? There's different interpretations. If it means it literally, Lashana, the following year, Omalei Naisim Marben Ebed Sudas Purim Muhadi Adadi. I had such a great time last year. Why don't you have another Suda with me? So Omalei Lobachol Shaita V'Shaita Misrachash Nisa. Not every single time could I be Samech Al Nes. So maybe I was lucky that I was revived last year, but I'd rather not have the Sudas Purim with you. Again, it's an interesting question why this Gemara is brought down, and it certainly does not shed Rabbah in the right, correct light. And exactly what does this mean? Does it really mean drinking, or does it mean being on a different level of seichel? Omer Rabbah Sudas Purim she'achal b'layil yotzei chavasai. If you have the Sudas Purim at night, that doesn't count. My time, you may mishta b'simcha ksiv. It has to be in the day. Rav Ashi have Yosef Kimei, perhaps Rav Kahana, Nagvul Asur Rabbanan. The Rabbanan didn't come. Or Malay, my time will Asur Rabbanan. Why didn't you come? Dilma Taridi b'Sudas Purim. Maybe the reason they didn't come is because they're involved in the meal, in the Suda. Says Rashi, Nagvul Asur Rabbanan, Ichar Hayoim, the day tarried. They didn't come to shul. They didn't come to learn Torah. Why couldn't they have learned at night and then they can come to the base medrash during the day? They couldn't have done it at night because they wouldn't fulfill their obligation. They have to do it during the day. Is that true? As he really said this? He learned it 40 times. As though it was like in his pocket, that he knew it so well that this in fact is the din, that you're not allowed to make your Suda. You could eat a meal at night, but the Suda's Purim to be Yotze has to be during the day. Next Mishnah. Ein bein Yom Tov Shabbos el oichel nefesh b'lvad. Very famous line, famous Mishnah. The only difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov is oichel nefesh. You're allowed to prepare and cook food on Yom Tov. Hal inyan machshir oichel nefesh zev shavan. When it comes to machshir oichel nefesh, preparing the food in advance, things that could have maybe even been done before, that they agree you can't even do in Yom Tov. So Masnis no Rabbi Yehuda, the Sanya. Ein bein Yom Tov Shabbos el oichel nefesh. That's the only difference by cooking, for example. Rabbi Yehuda mater af machshir oichel nefesh. Even machshir oichel nefesh. Again, the preparations is also allowed. So my time Tanakama, why does they say they don't allow machshir oichel nefesh? So Amar hu v'loy machshirav. Only it, but not its prior preparations. Yehuda lachem all of your needs. So lachem when it comes to cooking, it's lachem or nachri, as we saw also regarding Me'achados Beisham Beis Hillel. How do you word lachem? Lachem v'loy leklavim, not the dogs. So everyone holds you can't cook for a non-Jew or for your animals. However, you are allowed to cook according to this sheet of Meimitz Gavoa also, but you're also allowed to cook l'chol sarchechem. V'idach nami ha'ksiv hu v'ksiv lachem. Kan b'machshir sheyesh l'asas me'erev Yom Tov, kan b'machshir sheyesh l'asas me'erev Yom Tov. So this is the important sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, which is the whole question, like, are you allowed to trap l'mashal on Yom Tov? So we saw already Masechtas Bei, you can't. You have to shecht in Yom Tov because that's machshirin. That's something which cannot be done before Yom Tov because the food will spoil. However, trapping the animal from before Yom Tov, it's not going to cause any difference, and therefore that you're supposed to do. Let's see if there's any. So Rashi says, She'esher could go and sakin shenifka me'erev Yom Tov, so you could sharpen your knife from before. She'esher could go and sakin shenifka b'Yom Tov. Let's say you have a knife that became pogum on Yom Tov, and that's your only knife, so you're allowed to sharpen it according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. Question 12. Ein bein Yom Tov l'Shabbos. So mahu hadavar hanoisef deika bein Yom Tov l'Shabbos. So again, according to one shita, machshir oichel nefesh, ika bein Yom Tov l'Shabbos. Machshiri oichel nefesh. Okay. Next Mishnah. Ein bein Shabbos el Yom Kippurim. We know that if a person violates Shabbos b'mezid, there is a bidi adam punishment of skila. If you violate Yom Kippur, you do malach on Yom Kippur, the violation is kares. When it comes to tashlumin, to having to pay back, then in that situation, everyone holds it's the same thing. So what does that mean, tashlumin? So again, we'll see now. Money must be. So who's our Mishnah like? It must be Ranachin ben Akana. The sign Ranachin ben Akana. He haya oisa es Yom Kippurim k'Shabbos. No tashlumin. He made Yom Kippur just like Shabbos regarding tashlumin, paying back. Ma Shabbos mechayev benavsho. If let's say a person is chayev misa because they violated Shabbos, so upatim and tashlumin, we're not going to add salt to the wound and also require like al kadei rishasa. You don't also have to pay back. You're not you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay while you're already getting misa. So that's by Shabbos. So Av Yom Kippurim is chayev benavsho upatim and tashlumin. So too when it comes to Yom Kippur, even though the punishment is only b'di'adam, is not b'di'adam, it's b'dishamayim, the sense of the punishment of kares, which is so severe, you're patur from paying. If let's say you did damages and you technically have to pay, but since you're already chayev kares, you don't have to pay. Fine. Tanan hasam. Kol chayev krisus. Anytime the person is chayev krisus, shalaku, and there's also a din malchus, lashes on that person, nivnim mini krisasan. The malchus will pater the krisus. Shenemar v'nilka achicha linecha. Kivan shalaka, once he gets malchus, harihu achicha, it's like your brother. And therefore it's like the curse was removed. Divi Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. Amar Rabbi Yochanan chaluka v'lav davar chaverav al Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. So people are chayluk on this. So Amar Rabbi Amr Bey Rav Tanina, we learn in Ben Yom Kippur Shabbos El Shazazan B'di Adam Zazan Karis. Nim Isa Idi B'di Adamahi. The truth is that when it comes to a violation of Yom Kippur, if we would give the person malchus, then he won't get karis. So that's really also B'di Adam. That's not karis. It's B'di Adam, just like skill is B'di Adam. So Amar Rav Nachman Hamani Rav Yitzchakid. He Amar Malchus B'chaybi Krisus Leika. When it comes to Malchus B'chaybi Krisus Leika, we'll see what that means in a second. Look at Rashi. Hamani Rav Yitzchak. The Amar Masechtas Makos. De'ein Malkin Belav Hanitek Las Horis Koris. Afil Hisrol Malchus. Even if you get the hasra for malchus, we're not going to give you malchus if the punishment, you have the punishment of kares. If you have a punishment of severe of kares, we're never going to give you malchus. Therefore, this would not be a case of b'di adam, because there is no malchus in a time of kares. The sign of Yitzchak Aimer, chavi krisis b'chlal hoyu. They're mentioned in a general category, as it says in Parshas Kedoshim 2, it says V'ish ki yikach es achaiso, regarding the sister. Loma yatzas kares achaiso, person's relation with the sister's chayav kares. Well, dainim kares will malchus, to tell you that you only get kares and not malchus, says Rashi. Im hisr behen, if you were warned on it. V'afal gav denida nami nishnis ba'oisa partial l'davar shis chadish ba nishnis l'hara. Okay, we're not going to explain that, but that's the first shot. The first shot is there's no malchus when there's chayav kares. Ravashi, no, maybe the ritaka is malchus. So it's not b'di adam. I feel tamer rabbanan ze ikar zedan b'di adam ze ikar zedan b'kares. When it comes to the main punishment for violating Shabbos, it's b'di adam, it's skila. The main punishment for violating Yom Kippur is kares. The truth is, if you would have been warned that you would be getting malchus, we would, in fact, also give you malchus. You would not get kares. But truly, the ikar is kares. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see a couple more questions. Okay. Ein bein Shabbos Yom Kippurim. So, Mahu Hadavar Hanaisif, the Ika bein Yom Tiv Yom Kippurim. So, Tashlumin im Hamisa. Ika ben Shabbos Yom Kippurim. So that was the question. Do we say that there is a din tashlumin when it comes to Yom Kippur? Question 25, TA 25, which I think we did already. Ma nafki min ladina bezeh she'ester nitn likasev, whether it's matamas yadayim. Ma hamakar nitn likasev, because this is basefer. Okay. Eil Gimel Tanaim Nemru Shesarch Lios Besfarim Kadei Sheitamos As Yadayim. Okay, we didn't do that. TB 26. Ma nafkamin ma'asim Esther nitnali kasev baruch hakodesh alo. Again, whether it is matamash yadayim adkan.